Thanks for coming, you guys. Um, I was inspired by Alexander's share about Camino and his reasons for why he went. And it actually got me to start thinking about my reasons for why I like to share this information because what I've done in the past is always I share it trying to teach people who are actually in a farming industry and get them to change their practices, change the way they handle the soil. And I realized that um, a big part of me doesn't care if those people listen to me. That it's not about changing the food industry for me. It's which wouldn't be a nice, thing to have happen um, if I could get the message far and wide. It'd be nice to change the food industry, but I realized just today that really the person I want to talk to is the person who will take some of the information and use it in their everyday life to save the soil. And without any other reason than just doing good, just doing what we can do in this way to help our planet. And I don't know if any of you have heard of the nonprofit Kiss the Ground. They're located in Southern California, and they really they grew. They're huge now, and they have a soil advocate course where in there they talk about how desertification of our viable land that we can grow on, desertification happens to the tune of the same amount of acres as the United Kingdom every year. So think about all of the countries inside the UK and how much space that is. If that's happening every year, I know they're relatively small compared to the rest of the planet, but it's been going on for a while. And desertification doesn't really mean, it doesn't mean that you're looking at sand and dried up ground and cactus and things like that. What you have is you've created a soil that nothing grows in it. It's dead. It's basically a food desert, and an ecosystem is gone. So all that's left is dirt. And if it's alive, it's soil. If there's nothing living in it, it's dirt. And if nothing's growing on it, nothing's living in it. So really what my passion is to educate people why they might want to restore just that one little patch of ground that they have in their backyard. And the way you can recognize an area that's struggling is if nothing's growing on it. And sometimes if water pools there, it means the water's not infiltrating. If water's not infiltrating, it means you don't have any pore space. If there's no pore space, life can't move around in it like it's supposed to, and plants can't grow roots. They can't do anything. So I thought I would start with, I do have this thing that save the soil food web, save the soil food web, save the planet. This was a talk I gave to a permaculture class, a permaculture design course on Soil Day. And I firmly believe this. If you save the soil food web, you can save the planet. It's the beginning. You can't create an ecosystem on top of the ground until you have an ecosystem in the ground. But anyhow, I drew these, and I'm going to get this as close as I can. This is I think I'm going to put myself on speaker view. Why isn't that coming up? So that I can see that it's, of course, now I can't find it. I thought it would make it easier for me to see that I'm in the screen. Oh, well, I'm just gonna go. This is your general soil profile. It shows the top of the ground where the organic matter is. And then it shows things that are in the root zone. And you have your parent material down here. And the mineralogy in the ground depends on what your parent material is. So the parent material is bedrock, And the location of most soil life is in the root zone. So this little arrow is pointing up to my next poster. I love being informal. It's nice to just sit here on my floor and share. So this is the root zone, and this is where everything happens. You wouldn't want to be a human being living a microbial life because it's dangerous in the ground. So everybody's eating everybody. And this is the cooperation between the plant and the soil life works. And I talked about this a little bit with the tree talk. I don't know if it got recorded, but we did talk about it because the plant takes in CO2, makes the carbohydrates. Those carbohydrates feed bacteria. The bacteria are all in around the roots. And the reason why bacteria are important as a first responder is because they are gooey. They secrete all of this gooey stuff, and that gooey stuff, as they move around, drags little tiny soil particles with it, and it opens up the ground. So if the ground's not open, then imagine again, go back to that little spot in your yard that where water won't infiltrate. It's because the soil is compacted there. Maybe you walk on it all the time, or maybe you had something sitting on top of it and it sank, and there's no space in the ground anymore. There's no pore space. And bacteria are the first things that come in and start pulling things around, creating pore space. So if you have a bare ground, the next thing you're going to have move in is going to be what we call weeds, because weeds love bacteria, and bacteria happen first. And once you get bacteria in the ground, you start to get protozoa. And the protozoa eat the bacteria. And then you get the fungal network moves in. And when you can get the fungal network moving in, it creates even more pore space. And once that moves in, you get deeper rooting things. So the Great Plains grasses that we used to have, we don't really have them anymore. When you cut away a soil profile, so if you're looking at a Great Plains profile that actually has Great Plains grasses in it, those grasses, the roots on them grow 10 feet down into the ground. Imagine if you had grass like that in your yard, how open your soil would be and how much room there is for life. And you know what's in that life? Carbon dioxide. So when you get carbon sequestered into soil life, you're taking it out of the atmosphere. Now, me personally, I haven't decided whether I think extra CO2 in the atmosphere is as bad as what they're telling us, but there's definitely, an issue with it. It does cause things because then it gets in the ocean, and then the ocean turns into acid because it mixes with the water and creates acid. And then the acid kills things like coral reefs and fish and other life. So there are repercussions, but one thing I love about permaculture is that it's not about this being a problem. We say the problem is the solution. It is always the solution to something else. It where you have something missing, it's because you have an excess of it somewhere else, and that's the solution. So right now, the soil really is one of our solutions. And through desertification, we have reduced the amount of carbon that the soil can hold for us. And that can be changed. So there's a lot of like soil chemistry and soil microbiology that I could get into, but I want to keep it a little light this time. I have a full length talk on this that I plan to upload. I love that beacons thing. I've got something on there, and I'm going to get my 90-minute talk uploaded on there. So if anybody wants to look at that, you can. It does say pay what you can on it, but it will play whether you pay anything or not. So anyhow, when you have this diversity in the ground, then everything is keeping everything in balance, because you have your nematodes that are eating protozoa and bacteria. You have fungi that's eating nematodes. You have protozoa that's consuming bacteria, and all of it is churning this upward momentum for nitrogen, because the more complex you get of a soil critter, the less nitrogen they need. So they exude nitrogen, they excrete nitrogen, and then it becomes plant available. So just in general, a lot of grasses and annuals, they prefer nitrate that comes in the form, or nitrogen that comes in the form of nitrate, which occurs in the ground when you have bacteria. And then as you go further up with perennials, and which I don't have in this picture, with perennials like shrubs and fruit trees and biennial things that will live for more than a year, they may live for 2 or 3 years, then they like fungi, because fungi keep nitrogen as ammonium ion, which it's not important that you know what those look like, but I just wanted to say that because it all is an order of succession. Because when people use pesticides, they're knocking the ground back to the first order of succession, which is going to be bacteria. And then they wonder why they always have weeds. So because they can't get rid of them, they spray them, they can't get rid of them. The reason why is because everything in the ground is dead, and the first thing that comes back is bacteria, and bacteria supports the weeds. I think weeds are great. They're first responders. They are what shows up for soil death. So weeds are very beneficial. And just to recap, when you have more, I'm going to bring this forward a little bit. When you have more space in the ground, when you have more pore space in the ground, which is what we soil scientists call soil structure. If it's compacted, you don't really have structure. As soon as you open it up to pore space, then you get air. And just in general, we're aerobic beings. So the thing that's going to be healthy for us with the ground is if the ground is also aerobic. That means it's full of oxygen. We need oxygen. The ground needs oxygen. So you get beneficial things growing. If you don't have things that are aerobic, so everything, all the oxygen has been pushed out, nothing will live in that except a pest, what we consider a pest, something that's going to destroy our plant, make us sick, make it so other animals can't live in there. That's a pest likes things, it likes to do its respiration with something other than oxygen. So it's good to have air, you need to have water, and in a healthy soil, 50% of your soil is going to be pore space. So you have room for air and water, and then you have minerals. So it's the next thing I wanted to talk about. Anyhow, the soil food web is all of these animals. So this term was coined by Elaine Ingham, who was my teacher, because we talk about things in a linear fashion, where things when things eat each other in nature, they start from the small and they keep going up to the big, but that's not how it works in the soil. So you might think that a fungus is smaller than a nematode, which is like a microscopic little worm, but fungi will eat nematodes. They trap them and then consume them. And it's, the protozoa are going to be going after, let's see, they go after the bacteria. The nematodes will eat bacteria, they will eat fungi, they will eat each other. They're the good ones. They eat everything. But what controls what's in the ground is the plant. So when you plant something in the ground, if you have things that's all grasses and you want to plant a tree, it's going to struggle. You want to start with moving it up, because what you have when you have all grasses is bacteria, but tree prefers fungi. So when it does the food exchange, it's going to be feeding what will feed it. So if you have a tree, it's going to feed fungi, because the fungi are what is going to give them the kind of food that they need. So that was the only point I wanted to make with this page, so that you understand that if you want to change something, or if you want to open your soil up more, a tree is not the way to go. If you want to start with things that are going to break up the ground, and you want to start by planting things like carrots or radishes, things that will break up the ground. And I'll come back to that. I'll talk about just clay versus sand for a second, because microbial life is going to fix drainage no matter what. So if you add bacteria and fungi to a sand, you're going to hold more water, because they're in there to hold more water. So you will have less erosion. If you have a clay soil, if you add bacteria and fungi and the protozoa, it's going to expand, it's going to open it up. So everything will infiltrate faster and hold more water. So what I'd really like to convey is, by doing a few easy things that either open up the ground or hold the water in better, you're creating health in the ground, and you're creating an ecosystem in the ground. And without an ecosystem in the ground, you can't build an ecosystem above the ground. So what happens when you have an abundance of bacteria, fungi, and microarthropods, which are the little bugs that eat our leaves every year? When the leaves drop, you wonder where they go. Well, they get eaten by tiny little bugs that like crunchy snacks. And when you help the ground be more diverse, then you can grow more diverse things on the ground. It's going to increase the amount of bees and other beneficial insects that you have, which is going to bring in songbirds, which are going to eat more pests, which is going to bring in your burrowing rodents. You may not like those, but they have their purpose. And then you have snakes, and then you start to have bigger birds and bigger species, and pretty soon you have a pinnacle species. And pinnacle species are going to be the top predator or the top of the plants. So here where I am, it's oak trees and pine trees. Those are the end of succession plant. And what lives in an oak tree or pine tree? A bird of prey. We have owls, I have hawks. When you have a species like that, you have a good ecosystem in the ground, because they need so much space. And the ecosystem can't support a pinnacle species unless it's healthy. I have coyotes. So when these things come into your space and you are upset because they're there, then what you're doing is you're not really being aware that you have an ecosystem, and that ecosystem is supporting the pinnacle species that needs like all kinds of like square miles of land in order to survive. So the gophers now become food for the coyotes, and the coyotes control the deer population so they don't eat everything and tear up the whole like water zone. And it's a beautiful cooperation between the ground, the below, and then above the ground. So it really To me, that really matters, to convey that perspective. And I would love to see people do some things to bring that back to the planet. I know I come back to California a lot because I know it, but the whole the San Joaquin Valley, which locally we just refer to it as the Central Valley, and if you don't live in the Central Valley, you just call it the Valley. So it's a desert. It's completely a desert. And what used to be there when people first moved through that area, it was full of tules and elk and was an ecosystem. It is not an ecosystem anymore. And farmers complain that they don't have any water, but they would have water if they would treat land differently. So there's a whole theory that climate change, if you want to call it that, is actually misuse of land. So if you come back to building your soil, using things like compost, putting organic material in, some of the easy things that you could do is mulch it. Mulch your yard. Don't grow grass, grow flowers. Mulch your yard, change what you're growing, start to grow some food, plant a rosemary shrub, put in a nitrifier. So there are different things that add nitrogen into the ground that you could plant that makes your ground healthier. Places that are really a problem, you can dig a trench and fill it with leaves and sticks and twigs and all kinds of whatever it is that you have laying around in your yard. And then you fill it back over and plant something in it. So that drops water down deeper into the ground, and then it feeds the plant material that's in the trench feeds the fungi and the bacteria and the protozoa, and pretty soon it's spread all over your yard. It changes the environment of your yard. If you don't like weeds, change the environment in the ground. Put some mulch on top of it, promote fungal growth. They like wood, sticks, twigs, dried things that have dried before they drop off. If you chop grass and then use it for mulch, it contains a lot more nitrogen. It's going to feed bacteria. I could talk about this endlessly. Oh, this was another thing. This was another point. That's why I had this page marked. When you have all of these things, this bacteria and protozoa and the fungi in the ground, and you actually grow food, it's going to spread up all over your plant. And what it does is it blocks sites for attack from pests, so that you don't get molds, you don't get that weird brown growth that some plants get from the pests that are available. All the sites get blocked, and then when you eat it, it feeds your gut. So a lot of the problems that we have with our health is because we have what they call leaky gut. Leaky gut comes from not having your appropriate bacterial life in your gut. The bacteria block the intestinal tract from availability of things to seep into your system because they're gooey. They leave a gooey layer on top. Anyhow, I already talked about this. I got ahead of myself, but this is the whole succession thing. So if you're going to help your ground, you go from bare to weeds, and then grass, and then veggies, and then pasture and shrubs, deciduous trees, and then old growth things like conifers or oaks. You're going to help it by whatever it is that you feed the ground with. So if you feed with things that are green, then you're going to have more bacteria. If you really want to have flowers, you'll want more bacteria. If you feed with things that are brown, then you'll be able to have more things like shrubs and trees, because that feeds the fungi. And really the only thing, it's so easy. All you have to do is put something healthy on top. Don't ever leave the soil bare, and you can create pore space and get things to move into the ground. And it's all a matter of really getting things growing again. Wherever you are, you can add to the health of the planet globally by working with your soil and promoting the microbial life in it. And I'll just say it one more time. Oh, all you do is you feed it. If you know somebody who makes good compost, you can use that. If they make compost tea, you can use that. And then you throw something on top of the ground. Wood chips. I have a wood chipper here, so I have all these sticks, that all these things falling out of my forest all the time. I chip it, put it on the garden. And I also, when I mow, I use that somewhere too. Someplace where I maybe I want to have a flower bed. I put it on top of the flower bed and it just opens up the ground and it makes it all healthier. Anyhow, that's pretty much what I wanted to make sure that I convey today. And if there are questions or if like anything wasn't quite clear, I'd love to address that right now.
I thought it was really clear and really beautiful. And thanks so much for sharing. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's interesting to know how to get dead grass to be, but you're actually saying grass is further along than dead ground, right? So
Yeah,
you've
yeah.
got ground, you've got weeds, then you've got grass, and then you've got vegetables.
Yeah, things like annual vegetables then move up next. So basically, if it's a bare ground, then you don't have any life in there. Once
Right.
you have weeds come in, then you're going to have predominantly bacteria, which produce nitrate. When you move to grasses, if it's perennial grasses, things that naturally used to grow, not like lawn, like what we have right now, but then you increase the amount of ammonia and decrease nitrate, but you still have more nitrate than you have of ammonia. Then when you get into veggies, you're still going to have a little more nitrate than ammonia. And then when you go to pasture, like for grazing grasses, then your nitrate and ammonia are equal, which means nitrate equals bacteria, ammonia equals fungi. So,
That's
and
what you want to get to
shrub
there.
it goes more fungal populations, and then deciduous trees, really more fungal population. And when you get to old growth, mostly fungal populations. So when you get out under, a pine tree, nothing's growing under it. That's because the soil life is such that nothing will grow under it. But eventually the tree's going to fall down and it's going to support mushrooms and other little
Start over.
burrowing beetles and things. So it starts over.
So what about the lawns that we have now? Those are just sort of for decoration.
Yeah, they are. I don't know if people are aware, but historically, the types of yards that we have right now are like a status symbol. So in the South, if you could have a big giant yard, it meant you were rich enough to have all that land not producing and it needed to be taken care of. So the plantations have these huge lawns. And even here where I am in Kentucky, there are a lot of like the nicer houses are on these giant lawns.
Right.
Yeah. It's not, that grass is not really, um, I don't know where it grows naturally, but if you didn't take care of it, it wouldn't survive.
Right. Hmm. Beautiful. Well, thanks for the tools. I'm
Yeah.
excited. I'm
Awesome.
excited for what's coming into my next now, where I get to um, be a steward of the land.
Yeah.
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 It really has landed for me recently that one of the ways humanity goes is in the direction of technology and sort of an overinvestment in that. And all the technology came from the earth. So we took it out of the earth to turn it into technology. So now the other way we can go is back to nature, which already has everything we need. We always feel amazing when we're out in nature. Everybody does, you know? So how can we live a life that's more in harmony with nature and the
Mhm.
planet and give back and with what we do with our energy every day, you know?
Yeah, that's so true. And I puzzle over things all the time because when I look at how nature does it, it's easy and it's clean. And the way we do things is just not easy. It requires energy. The Mother Nature relies on the vortex, and the vortex is it's the motion that stores energy and uses all of it. So we do a lot of this push pull stuff when we use our machines, which is what Mother Nature uses to start over. So like a tsunami or an avalanche. And there's all this energy goes into it happening in the first place. You know, a tsunami wouldn't happen without, you know, a massive underground earthquake that then pushes the water up and sends it rolling along until it hits land. And I feel like that creates a lot of chaotic energy that we live in. And if we utilize the vortex more for what we do, then we wouldn't have wasted energy. But it's just an intuitive thing for me. I can't prove that.
Well, it's sort of like how it takes energy to hold ourselves in density, you know? And
Mhm.
when you relax and release and give it back to the light, then you lighten up, you feel better, you feel relief, you know? And I think it's something like that is happening for humanity now, or for me, I'll just speak for me, is that how can we co-create together in a way that's good for the land, it's good for the earth, it's good for the planet, it's good for each other, it's good for our hearts, you know, and still, I mean, I guess we wouldn't even need to be productive, really, right? Because productivity is for the corporations and the corpses and stocks and all that stuff. So that's like a detour from what matters now.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Be interesting to see how we sort this all out, or how we receive, or realize, or download, or whatever happens, you know? I guess we're all getting it now. And thanks for sharing this because you're helping me get it a lot
Yeah,
more.
I got a download uh, on how to receive energy from the ethers. As I've had this feeling for a long time that we could simply move it from where it is in the ether and make a battery that, well, it doesn't have, not really a battery, more like a conduit, and wire it straight into our house and use it. Which I'm going to play around with it, and if I get success with it, I'll share. I'll share.
Well,
Uh,
one of the guys in the community, he's been working on that. We were working on it maybe a year ago. Um, I mean, that's what the pyramids were for.
mhm.
Pyramids were for focusing your energy and intention and creating it out and transmitting it to many. Wireless energy, essentially free wireless energy.
Right.
I think a lot of people don't know why that matters. Like, why does it matter? Because, for example, their electric bill might be like $40 a month, might be the cheapest bill that they have. So, like, why would I care about free energy?
Because it's clean. and it's endless. And nobody has to do anything to receive it. And I, I'll go ahead and say, like, the way I see it working is constructing, like the pyramids, constructing out of crystals and wire wrapping with copper and constructing something that's like in the shape of like ice. So H2O makes a tetrahedron. And so if you wired out the crystals all together with the copper and just kept building on it and building on it and building on it, then it creates this synergy and it grabs the energy. I have crystals that are pointed on both ends so they can receive and give. And I think I can wire it straight into my house and run. My electric bill was $400, so it's significant. So I think it will work.
Beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Just saying thank you. And you know what I like about this? Because I don't do any like planting in the soil or whatnot. I had to take notes because if everything's one and this relates back to just life itself, right? Like you could see that's how I see it. Like how everything has its purpose, right? As a bacteria opens the ground. If you use weed killer, then you it doesn't actually serve a purpose.
Right, right.
Also, it's like being inclusive with things, not trying to kill off different energies
Yeah. I mean,
because
nature
they
knows
all
what
have a
to do.
purpose and they open space for greater growth, and that the plant is what is in charge of all of it, anyhow. So I don't know if anyone else understands what I'm saying, but yeah, like so, like if I'm the plant, I don't really need to work. You do want to like have a focus about what's around you and what you're planting and what's in your space so that you can grow healthy. But that everything has its purpose. Except it sounded like the sand or like dirt that doesn't grow anything. It doesn't have a purpose. So like maybe there's some things in life that just creates more death.
The dirt that's not growing anything does have a purpose. It's just not following its purpose at the moment.
Right.
And it is available. It's available to fulfill that purpose. And eh, as human beings here on the planet, we are uniquely endowed with the capability to steward because we have opposable thumbs and we are imaginative. We've created things that can take us to elevations that other things can't go. We can go deep in the water. We can go out, and we've created adaptability for us, even though we don't naturally come with it. And um, we can build things, and we can cultivate, and we can change things. We can either change things. Well, basically, I'll just say that my philosophy is we should stop using the term there's give and take. It's not give and take, it's give and receive, give and receive, give and receive. When you take, you're taking something that's not readily available. When you receive it, that's because it came out naturally. And if we give to the ground, we get to receive from her. So it's give to the ground first. And it's just like what Neil has said about if you want abundance, give your gift. Be giving your gift first, and then it will come. The ground's the same way.
Very nice. I do have a rosemary. You mentioned rosemary. I have a rosemary. That's the one plant I've planted, and blueberries, but they didn't make it. But I was noticing it's something about the dirt. So now I know more because I do want to grow more plants the more space I have.
Blueberries are picky. They need to be in an understory, and you need to have more than one species for them to pollinate.
Mm.
Do a little reading on blueberries. I had the same problem. I planted blueberries under my fig tree and they started out doing okay and then they died. So you need more, you need to just probably do a little more research with them. And really, like, a lot of the things that you plant won't make it. That's just how it goes.
Keep keep
Yes, don't give
trying, right?
up. Oh, thanks, you
It's
guys.
wonderful information, really. I love it.
Like it. I'm just so appreciative of this forum, and I don't know what I'm going to talk about next, but it'll be fun. So thank you so much for being
You.
here.
I want to thank you guys because I'm so blown away by how much fun I'm having here every day. I mean, I'm creating in my highest excitement a lot. Now you guys are showing up and creating your highest excitement. And I'm realizing you guys are channelers. You know, Gabrielle, she's doing a channeling session tomorrow. Um, and we talked about it and it just became that way. Amanda, you just channeled some Gaia Earth soil magic to us. Okay.
Mhm.
Julie said she's a channel last time, which was cool. Kathy, I'm sure that there's some beautiful that wants to be shared through you at some point, and some people in the community aren't as excited about sharing, and that's okay too, because they're more in the receiving mode in that sense. But it's just when you get on the court and you do this and you move the energy through you, Amanda, from last week's session to this week's session, right? To whatever comes through you next. I'm just I'm in awe just watching you. So thank you.
Thank you. And you're welcome. All right. Well, I think I'll go ahead and let stop the recording and just I thank you so much again. I can't express my gratitude enough.